great conversation from about a week and a half ago about the milestones in retirement. And we focused mainly on the birthday, the ages, milestone ages. And you can hear that conversation in its entirety when you subscribe to the Retire ATL podcast. But now I really want to talk it and focus on some of the situation, the milestone moments as we approach retirement and what to look out for and maybe some of the strategies that can help out with those moments. Where do you want to start?
The name of the game here is to give people some heads up on, if these things, these situations may have flown under the radar for you. You may be recently dealt with one of these or currently walking through these situations and didn't realize that this is a milestone, a decision-making moment that can have a huge bearing on your retirement. One of those things, maybe we'll start with a job change.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a job change where you decided you want to change jobs. Maybe it's a job change where it was decided for you, relocated, forced retirement, severance, any of the different things that can happen where all of a sudden that 401k or that employer-sponsored plan, whatever it is now you have some decisions to make. Do you leave it where it's at? Do you move it somewhere else? Is there a better option for you? So that's one, regardless of what your age is. Maybe you're not at that certain threshold of one of those major age milestones we discussed.
Like age 55 or 59 and a half, where you would normally maybe get access to that account at work.
Exactly. But even outside of those certain ages, if all of a sudden you're no longer employed with that employer,
right,
or you even say an old 401k somewhere else, we should talk for sure.
I think most people, you get so comfortable with your 401k because most people are at their job for enough time to kind of get familiar with maybe the system that you log into or the custodian that holds the 401k, or maybe you've got like a favorite fund in that 401k that's performed well for you.
Maybe your HR department's awesome.
Yeah, maybe they are.
Said no one ever.
Exactly. But if they are awesome, hey, kudos to you guys, HR people out there. It's a hard job. It's a tough job.
Definitely a tough job.
Dealing with people can be tough sometimes.
Right, firing people.
Firing people is not fun. No, it's not. But hey, you've got a 401k, maybe you're attached to it, but what most people don't know is that can actually be the thing, moving jobs that kind of sets your 401k free. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people don't realize that 401ks are limited in terms of the options that you have to invest in. Some of them can be expensive. Yeah. And
you're certainly paying fees you may not know about.
Oh, absolutely. But the idea of getting that 401k monies into something else can seem scary, but man, we do this all the time. And it's actually, in a lot of cases, you can kind of set those monies free to maybe do more for you now than they were doing in the 401k, with maybe limited options, maybe higher than average fees. Average fees in a 401k, they can be 2-3%. There's a bunch of studies on that. You can Google it at your leisure. You'll see them.
Yeah, but as we're talking about the 401k here, that's something that you've done before and you offer with that retirement map. That includes a deep dive into a 401k because hidden fees can destroy a 401k, and you find them all the time. And then we as adults, as clients, we never see that.
Right.
We aren't taught this in school. We aren't taught this at work. This is one of those things where you just got to figure out along the way, unfortunately. And a lot of misconceptions out there. So a lot of people think, okay, I'm not age 59 and a half yet. Yes, I left my employer last year, but I can't move my 401k or I'll have to pay tax or penalties on it. Well, that's what we're trying to say here is if you're no longer employed with that employer, job change of whatever, then you can access those 401k funds. You can move them somewhere else, maybe a better investment opportunity we should discuss, without having to pay taxes or penalties. That's what we're trying to say. Job change is a huge threshold.
If you change jobs, it's time to put that 401k under the microscope and see if it's actually the thing that you should be using as a tool going into retirement.
Okay, well then I know you offer, it's essentially a 401k X-ray. How can we reach out to you? How can we sit down with you and have this conversation about our 401k strategy?
Oh, we would love to sit down and talk about really any of the topics that we're going to talk about today. You can reach us at 770-741-0120, or you can go to our website, retireatlradio.com. Aaron or I, either of us, we'd love to sit down and talk with you. If anything that we talk about today strikes a nerve, if we're talking about you, like we read your diary this morning, if it's you, please call us, 770-741-0120.
Now, if you wake up and you see Matthew Decker in your room reading your diary,
that's a problem.
First 911. Yeah. And then once you get to know each other.
The first time that happened to me, let me tell you, I was freaked out.
And now we're buddies. Now we work together. Okay, some of the big milestone moments as we approach retirement, talking about 401k, what else?
We'll call them family moments.
Family moments. We got a lot of family moments.
Okay. Yeah.
They can be heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. These are the ones that can be tough to talk about, but when you feel like you're ready to, there's some big ones.
Yeah. So the first one would be if you experience a death in the family.
Mm-hmm.
That can obviously be tough. It's a hard thing to go through,
it's a reality.
but it's a reality, and it's going to happen to everybody at some point in time. And that's a flag in the ground or a pin in the map where, some decisions have to be made. If you're in your 60s, maybe you've already filed for Social Security. Okay, now you're not just dealing with the death of a loved one, but you might have some Social Security decisions to be made as it relates to survivor benefits. If you have life insurance that's involved, if there's trusts that are involved, there's all kinds of little decisions that can really, kind of make or break your retirement or certainly put you in the driver's seat if you do some things right, or, it's just, there's so many decisions to be made and it's a tough time already.
And we're not just talking about like parents and inheritance. We're talking about spouses. We're talking about, this is one of those that, obviously death changes things. Yeah. Let's be real. But also as Matt mentioned, there are decisions to be made that can't be made twice in most situations.
Yep.
Like once you elect which way you're going to go with that account or with that Social Security benefit or whatever it is, once you make that decision, more often than not, there's no going back and redoing it once you realize it was the wrong decision. It's done.
Mm-hmm. And this goes back to also the beneficiaries, which is a conversation that you're going to have when you're putting together these legacy plans, these estate plans. And I'll let you explain it, more in depth, that one of the biggest problems you find is the name at the bottom isn't right. How often do you find that it's like an X's name on there? On a will, on a trust. How often does that happen?
Well, it doesn't happen often with our clients.
Good.
That's one of the things we look at a lot. Yeah. Typically we meet with our clients at least once a year, if not twice. And a beneficiary kind of recap is always on the list.
Yeah. But in terms of, people that come to us for a second opinion and they say, hey, here's my last will and testament. Here's my trust paperwork. Here's my different accounts.
Yeah.
And we start looking at beneficiaries. Sometimes there are minors that are named as beneficiaries on accounts. Sometimes you do have ex-spouses that are named as beneficiaries on accounts, or you got a brother or a sister because you weren't married yet when you set the account up. Yeah. And that, there's all kinds of issues with beneficiary designations for sure. That's a big one that can really kind of wreck plans.
Another reality of life, and unfortunately it happens, 50% of all couples end in divorce.
Yep.
So that's another milestone that if it happens, how complicated is that when resetting or adjusting a plan?
Oh man, we've had clients go through this recently where they were still working. And so now you're actually working with the court system in order to separate out qualified accounts and 401ks and IRAs. And that might be known as like a qualified divorce.
What's the R?
I don't know. Report?
Edit.
Yeah. Brandon, edit this.
We'll do it again. That would be known as a quadro. You go through the court system for that, and they basically separate out your accounts of the spouse and the qualified monies. Yeah. That can get super complicated, and there's all kinds of different ways to kind of piecemeal those accounts out. So, yeah, certainly divorce is a big one.
And we've had people call in before. So, let's just say, for example, the husband's name is on the accounts. A divorce happens. And then the spouse, the wife calls in, hey, I need to talk about XYZ account. Well, unfortunately, you're now divorced. It's in your husband's name. Guess what I can't do? I can't talk about it anymore because your name's not on it. So protecting yourself in those situations, is big. So all these things, no one plans for divorce.
Yep.
And so the reality of these conversations, bringing them up before they happen, ideally, or when they're happening, having someone in your corner discussing it with you. It's something that we do all the time.
If you have a pension, this is another one that we should probably touch on. If you have a pension and you get divorced and you and your spouse are different ages, that's going to change the pension dollars based on the age of the spouse, because most of these companies use an age-based payment system. And so if your husband is 67 and you're 62 and you get that quadro orders, some of that pension is yours legally if you get divorced. Some of that pension is yours, but you being younger, it's not going to be valued the same as your spouse. And so there's all kinds of little nitty-gritty details that really matter as it relates to divorce and qualified accounts, 401ks, pensions,
On the topic-
Social Security.
Yeah. On the topic of divorce or death, I guess it could be related to that too. Is we hear all the time, whether it's a divorcee or a widow, often the husband chose the financial advisor, and
Yep.
he had the relationship. I'm generalizing here; it's not always the case, but it's often the case. And then you come to a situation where now, let's just use an example of now you're the spouse, you're the wife. Now you're either divorced or your husband has passed. Well, you don't like that financial advisor, possibly.
He talks over your
He
head.
talks over your head, and he's been talking to your husband for the past 20 years, not you. And you don't have any rapport with him, but he's the one that's made all the decisions with your husband, or he's the one managing the money to a certain end. And now you're kind of jumping in midstream, hoping to make sense of it all. It's overwhelming.
We see all the time, maybe the investments are geared towards the husband, who's maybe geared towards more risk.
His risk tolerance.
Yeah, so
hers.
his risk tolerance is what's driving the equation of their retirement plan. And maybe, you're less risky. You don't want to take a bunch of risk, but you're dealing with the old financial advisor who kind of feels defensive about the decisions that have been made. Mm-hmm. It's tough to kind of make those decisions or change what's already in the plan. It's a tough situation, but that's why we exist. Give us a call.
And what's that number? How can we reach out to you?
770-741-0120 or retireatlradio.com.
Now, what about, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this one, but we're talking about some of the milestone moments into and through retirement to be prepared for that can affect your overall strategy. What about like a second marriage or even a third marriage? It's a reality as well. Does that make things even more complicated with plans?
It certainly can. I think the big thing that you need to watch out for is your Social Security benefits. As you get divorced and remarried, it changes what you're able to do with Social Security. So that's something hard to give general advice on that. You would really need to sit down with a professional and kind of go through all those different options.
It's a big one. I mean, these are all relevant, and the more divorces that have been, the more marriages, the more complicated it can be for sure.
Gotcha. 770-741-0120. Again, 770-741-0120. If you're driving around this weekend, we know it's early, but maybe you're heading into work or maybe heading home from work, heading out of town, maybe a road trip. We do invite you to give the team at the Vincent Financial Group, give the team a call. If you hear anything and you say, man, I'm in that situation right now. Fortunately, maybe a divorce, maybe there was a death in the family. Maybe you're going to get remarried. Maybe you have a new job as well. You can ask the questions. There's nothing wrong with asking the questions. It is your money. 770-741-0120 or retireatlradio.com. All right, what's another milestone moment that we should be aware of as we approach retirement?
A big one is, and we hear this a lot from people that come and talk to us, is your financial advisor is retiring or has retired. And, most of the time they present some plan to you for who's going to take over and what the next steps are. But the reality is you're talking about money, you're talking about life, you're talking about big decisions. We're talking about job changes, deaths and divorce and kids like we're all discussing right now. And that's a relationship. And, a lot of times, I mean, you can see the studies out there. If we take just the boomer generation, for example, most financial advisors are going to retire at the same time their clients are retiring. Just talking in generalities here.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it means that in some of the most critical years, you're talking like we talked earlier about the different age thresholds. You get to 70 and you got that perfect kind of red zone of decisions to make to avoid forced taxation or to at least mitigate it. And right about then is when your advisor's retiring along with you. Mm-hmm. Well, who's going to advise you and guide you through some of those big decisions? Now you're meeting someone brand new. So that's a big kind of life moment as well. If your financial advisor is about your same age, look, maybe they're great and maybe you have a great rapport with them. I respect that. I love that. But you may want to consider getting someone who's going to be getting you through retirement, not just to retirement.
What's interesting is a lot of people that call and reach out to us and we say, hey, what was it that made you pick up the phone? What was it that made you go to the website and actually, book an appointment with us? And they'll say, well, I liked what you talk about. And I heard some things that I know applied to me, but also I like the fact that you guys are going to be around while I'm retired.
Yeah. We'll be doing this for 30 more years.
Easily.
Or whatever. And so we'll be here for a while.
Easily. RetireATLRadio.com. You can put faces to the voices that you hear every weekend here on Retire ATL. Or, of course, if you have any questions, 770-741-0120. What about the kids? We've talked a lot about family.
Yep.
What about the kids? What happens if you have a kid that moves back home for whatever reason? Or
putting them on the payroll?
A kid that won't even leave.
Won't leave the payroll.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
They're
Lot
starting
of
their
issues.
8th year of college and they're not going to be a doctor.
Yeah. Don't want to talk bad about the kids because everybody, it's tough out
We
there
love
these
our
days.
kids.
Oh, I got 3 of them.
It's tough out there these
Freeloading
days.
sons of guns. But listen, what can we do to help them?
It's tough. The last thing you want to do, and this gets back to beneficiary designations that we talked about before. The last thing you want to do is leave an 18-year-old kid $1 million. That could be the worst thing that ever happens to someone that hasn't learned how to work, hasn't learned how to show up on time. Easy things that we all learned in our first couple of jobs. You give that person $1 million, $2 million.
It's gone in 3 years.
It's
Right.
gone.
That's
It's
the
like winning
average.
the lottery.
That's
It's
the
the
average.
same statistics as winning the lottery, right? You end up broke couple years down the line. So there's certainly that. You want to make sure that you're protecting your children in how you leave them dollars. And we can certainly provide guidance on that. Although we're not attorneys, we do kind of know the provisions that you might want to include on some of your accounts as beneficiary
Or how to organize
designations.
the accounts.
How to organize the accounts. And then I think the other big one too is, making decisions around, are you going to help pay for college? How much are you going to help pay for college? Are you going to help grandkids, get in and out of college? So there's all kinds of little choices that you need to make as it relates to your kids, your grandkids, and all of it has an impact on your retirement.
This is a conversation that we like to have as early as possible. I mean, when you come in or call us, even for an initial conversation, we often talk about how we want to ask questions and listen to you. This is your life and your money. And one of the things we want to find out is, what are your goals for what you want to leave to your kids? Some folks are like, hey, listen, I had to figure it out myself. I want my kids to figure it out. I want the last check to bounce. The check to the morgue needs to bounce. That's how I want to cut it that thin. I worked hard for my money. I want to enjoy it. Nothing wrong with that. Others who are like, you know what? I didn't have any help in life and I want to give my kids a little bit of a heads up, a little bit of a jump start. Or maybe you did have help in life. Maybe you've got family money. What a blessing. But organizing these things in a way that's advantageous, because we all know that life will throw us curveballs.
Yep.
We all know that no plan goes unchallenged. There's going to be something that happens that you didn't plan for, you couldn't account for. And that's when these things are kind of won or lost. And if you wait to have these conversations till after that curveball happens, it's too late sometimes.
And then also, as you're talking about helping out the kids or maybe letting that last check bounce, there's also some tax implications from being charitable.
Absolutely.
With your money as well. So
Absolutely.
these are all conversations that you can have. And, Aaron, what's the best way to reach out to you and the team to schedule that no cost, no obligation consultation?
Give us a call. I mean, look, we want to talk to you at first. Our number here, 770-741-0120, or check out our website, retireatlradio.com. Our first meeting typically is either in person at one of our offices or it's via Zoom, whatever's more convenient for you. And it's just to get to know you.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Don't
Doesn't
bring your
cost
wallet.
anything. Yeah. We just want to get to know you. Do you want our help and can we help you?
And that initial consultation, it's no cost, it's no obligation, but the guys at Vincent Financial Group, they're great at what they do. They're not miracle workers. But if you've done a great job, you've got a good savings, a 401k you're proud of, maybe a Roth, a pension, a TSB, reach out to the team. Let's have this conversation. Let's build upon your gains. Again, no cost, no obligation. RetireATLRadio.com or 770-741-0120.